And I'm Michael Miller. We have a very special guest with us. I'm going to get it right. Christine Sanon-Jules Olivo.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness gracious. So welcome.
Right. Thank you so much, Michael, for having me.
And what's really important is you are running for State Representative District 107.
Yes, I am.
And it's a really important district, but bigger than that it's an important district. Why you and why now?
Why me and why now? Well, I was born and raised in the district, and when I see that a lot of my family and friends can't even live in the district, now's the time. When I see that I want to be able to raise my children in my district and it's very hard to even find a place to live, now is the time. We need one of us to represent us in Tallahassee, and so that is why I'm meeting the moment.
Okay. Give us the basic boundaries.
So we have a little bit of North Miami. We have all of North Miami Beach, Biscayne Gardens, and half of Miami Gardens.
We love Miami Gardens, all right? And that's great. And Biscayne
Gardens. So Biscayne Gardens is like off of like Memorial Highway area, right in between. Like if you get off on Golden Glades, there's like an area of houses there, and that's Biscayne Gardens.
And you said that people can't live there. Why is that?
Because the rent is too high. It is too high. I was looking at a house near my aunt's house. I was just, calling just to see how much it was. A 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, $4,500 a month. A month.
Oh my goodness.
So, it's a struggle. I went to a church the other day, True Gospel Church, and that's where I volunteer at every Wednesday. I volunteer at the food drive, but they had service on Sunday. I went to the service and they were saying goodbye to one of their longtime members. And I pulled her aside and I said, well, why are we saying goodbye to you? She said she tried everything to find a home. No one would take her. She had been living in the place for years. The landlord sold the place, and so she couldn't find somewhere to live. Georgia, there was somewhere that was affordable. Her job transferred her, no problem, and she just surrendered. She was like, I'm just going to have to move. And she took her and her daughters to Georgia.
Certainly that is a major problem that we're all having down here in South Florida. And one of the things we hear a lot about is insurance.
Yes.
It is catastrophically high.
Yes.
And at some point, it certainly catches up with the average homeowner. Maybe the first year or two is okay, maybe the third year. But at that point, then it starts to stretch everything.
Yes.
There is no simple solution. But what are some of your ideas about how to control that?
So the first idea, number one, is we need to reach across the aisle. I think that a lot of things are not getting done because our legislators are not communicating with each other. Everybody's fighting. Everyone has their own ideas of how things can move forward. But the only way that we can move forward is if we put the people first and say, I'm going to reach across the aisle and say, what can we really get done here? This is a Republican. We have a Republican majority in the House, both the House and the Senate. And so the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, what are they willing to budge on? It's just being real. I can give you all the ideas that I want, but if I cannot work with my Republican counterparts to make that happen, it's not going to happen.
Now, one of the things that you obviously were pointing out to, you have people on this side that are pulling you and people over there. And Miami and South Florida is very diverse.
Yes.
Lots of cultures, lots of everything that's going on. One of the greatest melting pots in the entire globe is right here. And certainly it's good for the soul, no matter what the old people from the back end say. And even within your community, it's very diverse.
Yes.
How are you going to be able to connect, number one, that diverse community there with the representatives of the other area that want the best for their people?
So I represent a lot of different communities. I'm a child of immigrants, so my family's from Haiti, and I'm able to relate with the Haitian community. I grew up in Dade County as a young Black girl, so I have a lot of African American friends, and I went to a predominantly Cuban high school. Wow. So I have shout out to Pace High School. I have a lot of Hispanic friends, plus my children are half Puerto Rican. So when I tell you about community, I'm able to speak and relate to multiple communities. When we talk about a legislator that can actually bridge people together, I am that person. So the first thing is understanding that at the core of every community, there are very specific needs that everybody wants: shelter, food, economic opportunities. We can all find a common ground there. And then we get into, like, education, immigrant access to resources, different things like that. We can expand. But if we can start at the core, that is where we can all meet together. I think we all speak that same language.
Christine, I'm glad you brought up about education. We have a lot of schools here, throughout Miami-Dade County and Broward. What is it you can do to help educate your constituents so they can be prepared for tomorrow?
What I would love to propose is an education program for adults. What we don't realize is that after COVID, a lot of people had to start completely new careers, right? So that means that we need new training. Some people did not have access to the proper resources to maybe finish their degree, and so they ended up getting a job and they never went back to school. We need programs that can help adults get back into their schools so that they can finish their education, get their degree, get a higher paying job, or a trade school where they can learn a new skill and also get a higher paying job.
Madam President at Miami-Dade, Madeline Pumariega, said, we are the opportunity. We are the pathway in Miami-Dade. You can come here, you can be an electrician, or you can go to MIT.
Yeah, or you can be a nurse.
Yes.
Or...
all those things that are available right here in Miami-Dade County. Mm-hmm. And by the way, ladies and gents, I also went to Miami-Dade many years ago. So there's lots of opportunities right here. And part of it is how can we educate that person to say it's time to take this next step and go get that certificate if you need that. There are plenty of certificate programs. People become carpenters, electricians, plumbers.
So this is the thing. When you have a family that's in a financial crisis, they are not thinking, I need to go back and give my time to finish this degree, right? So we need more programs where our families can work and learn at the same time. So they're making money. They don't have to sacrifice, the job that they have for the time being for the education that they need that will change their income in the future. We need to foster more work education environments. So,
Christine, you mentioned about COVID and the impact that it has. Even though that is essentially gone, it still impacted a lot of us, especially the young people who spent 4 years or 3 years of their lives, in some cases half their lives or a quarter, being isolated.
Yes.
So tell us about your experience with that, and what you did to get to blend back in.
So I became a middle school teacher right after, people started going back to school after COVID. Before that, I was a middle school youth director, but I wasn't necessarily in a classroom setting. So I got into the classroom and I realized that my students did not know how to communicate with each other. Sometimes they didn't know how to communicate with me. And I had to take a step back and put myself in their shoes. So what we did was, I'm a very hands-on teacher. I taught math and science. I brought the education into their hands. They would come on the board. They would work out the problems. We would do live experiments and all these things that really got the kids to be more hands-on, teaching them how to work in groups. I assigned them group projects and presentations that they had to work together and present to the class. They were like, what is this? It's like, yeah, this is what I used to do when I was a kid. So I brought those skills that I had as a child into the classroom for today. Kids want to learn. They need direction. They just need a teacher that's going to take the time to really think outside the box and do things. My 2 children were, I guess you can say, COVID babies. They spent their time at home with me for a year. And then when they went back to school, it was almost like they were a year behind. We had to catch them up. It's possible, but you have to put the time in.
We know that mental health is up front and center, especially the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And we know that there's so many people that need help. A lot of them don't know that. But if you get elected, what can you do to help get mental health care for people that are inquiring about it?
Well, I think that just like you get a checkup included with your insurance every year, just like you have your annual dental visits included every year with your dental insurance, I think that a mental health check, being able to go talk to a licensed therapist, should be included in your insurance. Absolutely. I do not think that you should have to pay out of pocket.
A couple of years ago, when we started hearing people would take off a mental health day, I went, how good is that? And that, because that allows people to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're all human.
Yes.
We're all human. Isn't it wonderful? I was talking to a friend, he said, I'm taking a mental health day. And I said, go, good. He says, I got to go do this, this, and this. And he was just needed a pause for a moment. We work with a lot of mental health organizations such as NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. Yeah. Are there some organizations that you've worked with that you know the type of work they've done that you'd like to talk about for a few minutes?
Well, my sister is Ashley Bianca Jones. She is a huge advocate for mental health awareness, and she has a program called Cupcakes and Chill, and she gathers people monthly for different events, and she has different speakers, and sometimes she'll get everybody like a massage or a nail treatment or something like that. So she's been doing that for years, and she gives away free therapy sessions. I know I won one year. So organizations like that. Also, Black Men Build. I don't know if you've heard of Black Men Build, created by Philip Agnew. They meet monthly as well, and even though it's called Black Men Build, they have one for women as well, and they meet monthly, and they have mental checks, and they have people there that will check on you. So those are the organizations that I want to foster, especially they're young, I guess millennials, you want to say, or maybe even younger, that are really taking over the mental health industry. That's
wonderful. So how are people going to find out more about you so they can decide how they're going to vote? We have the primary coming up. It's on August 20th?
Yes, and right. That is the only opportunity to vote, because whoever wins the primary wins the election, really.
So that's a day, which is very, very soon.
Yes, very soon.
And you're excited about it.
I am excited about it.
What's wonderful?
I went to Tallahassee yesterday and qualified. So I'm officially on the ballot, but there's a lot of us on the ballot. But the only one you need to remember is Christine Sanon-Jules Olivo. I may be the last on the list, okay, but I'm going to end up being the first. So if you go to christine4fl.com, you can learn more about my campaign.
And there's other contact information, so if somebody wants to talk to you, you could do that.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm going to ask you in a moment to look into the camera, and 1 minute to tell people why they should look into you and consider voting for you. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, we're going to look right in the blue camera right over here, and you are on.
So I am a 2-time congressional candidate. I have a bachelor's degree in public administration. I have a master's degree in business, but none of that is why you should vote for me. You should vote for me because I am a daughter of District 107. I was born and raised in these streets. I opened up my first business in these streets. I got my first teaching job in these streets. My kids go to school in these streets, and I'm going to go to Tallahassee to represent these streets. So that's why you should vote for me.
That's wonderful. If you are blessed enough to be able to serve us, what are some things you would like to bring to the table right away?
First, I would like equitable funding. I see that there's other districts that are represented by Republicans that get a lot of resources into their communities. And there are districts that are represented by Democrats that don't. And I feel that it should not matter who your representative is. We should have the same resources. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be a culture war over who gets resources and funding for their community. So the first thing is I want to make sure that my community gets the same amount of funds as any other community.
So we know that the look of politicians the last 25 years has changed a lot, and the demographics of Miami-Dade has changed a lot.
Yes.
So how do you process all that? You're old enough to remember when, right? And young enough to enjoy it. So how do you process this?
I love embracing change, but I also think that we need to fight for the people that were born and raised here so that they can also stay here. I am so open and excited for all the new faces that we see, but not at the expense of the people that grew up here.
Lots of times people don't know how many people you represent, but do you know the number it is? How many people are that live in your district?
That live in my district? 107?
Yeah, something like it, yes.
Yes.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
We know that there's very specific needs for some people, but big picture stuff. Mm-hmm. What do people want in their lives?
People want to be happy. I know it sounds very hippie-ish of me to say, but people just want to be happy. At the end of the day, we just want to be happy. We want to wake up and say, I'm happy at home. I'm not stressed out about food. I'm not stressed out about my children's education. I can go on a vacation with my family and not feel like I'm not going to have a job when I get back. People just want to be happy.
And then people get happy for a lot of reasons, all right?
Yes.
And so I know that's not in that picture, which is if they're happy, there are lots of things they can have or not have. But let's talk about a minimum health care for people. What can you do so the people in that district have access to health care?
I'm going to say this without starting a fight. We need to accept the federal dollars. Our governor turned away a lot of federal funding for health care, and a lot of people, children mainly, lost their health care because we wanted to play politics. If the dollars are there, accept the funds, help the people. Number one, we should always put the people over politics. And so I think that the number one thing that we need to do is work politely and gently to encourage our governor to not create this culture war and just accept the funds so that we can get people back on Medicaid.
There's a local physician, Dr. Tina Carroll Scott. She runs the South Miami Children's Center. She gave up a very lucrative position as a pediatrician in Bal Harbour 20 years ago. She came to South Miami to serve the people that needed it the most, and she wanted to have equitable health care for everyone and to raise that. And I listened to her, and you realize she's not just treating the baby. It's the family.
It's the family.
And she talks about families, my family this, my family's that. It took me a while to figure out what she was really, saying. I've learned a lot from her about caring, and why people are willing to give up things to be able to give on the other end. And I've seen her save many people, many people, and keep these families together. And the stuff she does is extraordinary, way beyond going to your doctor's office and he's in there for 5 minutes and he gives you some pills, have a nice day.
Yeah.
She sits down and has a conversation. So what is it that you think you can do if you sit down with the family? You sit down with the family, your state representative, what might be some questions that you could ask them to see if there's things that you could help them with?
As far as healthcare?
Yes.
Well, first I would ask them, are they concerned about their healthcare? Do they have insurance? Do their children have insurance? I know that some families don't even go and get checkups. My uncle did not go and get a checkup. He was afraid of what the bill would be. Like, are you afraid to go to the doctor because you can't afford it? And my uncle ended up passing from cancer. He did have a problem, and for about a year, he didn't go and get the help that he needed. So the first thing I would say is, are you afraid? And how can I relieve that fear? How can I take that away from you? When it comes to healthcare, I think it's one of the best investments that we can make as a state. We have a surplus, okay? If we can make sure that people are healthy, the healthier people are, the better that they work, right?
Yes.
And the better that they live. And so I think that number one is just making sure that we relieve whatever stress we can from that fear, and then say, if we could cover therapy, if we can cover that mental health portion, if we could maybe add an extra checkup or add cancer screenings, all of these different things that we can add to our insurance that are possible, that other countries provide for their constituents, would that make life easier for you? And I'm pretty sure everyone would say yes.
We know that men in particular, without their wives or girlfriends begging them to go to the doctors, tend not to go.
They don't.
Because why go?
Yeah.
Nobody's there. And I know that's a problem with everybody, no matter what the race is, that I don't need to go and nobody's bugging. So certainly that's in divorced families, which are half or 60%, the guy's left out in the cold because he's too proud. I don't need to go because like this.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people get unnecessarily sick, unnecessarily die because they didn't get in for prevention and for wellness checks. So I hope that you can do something along that line. And mental health care is important for us here at community newspapers. So if you're elected, I hope you do something to bring help to the people so they're a little bit calmer in their lives, and that they can work out their problems. Education, as you know, is top, right? Whether it's you want to be an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber, a video person.
Even
right?
early childhood, and we want to talk about mental health.
I was doing the manly stuff.
Yes, but
I'm sorry.
but even if we can provide early childhood daycare, you know how many moms are stressed. Their mental health is not the greatest because they are supporting their family and having to take care of their family and dishing out a lot of money for daycare. If we can even cover daycare for these families, for these mothers, for these parents that desperately need, I think that would also be, because early childhood education, especially being so behind because of COVID, will help our children get an early start.
So we know a couple of years ago, a young mom took her autistic child and threw him in the canal. Somebody saw the baby was struggling in the water, went and rescued the baby, gave her the mom because he didn't see that and then a few blocks later, she threw the baby back in and died. So we know that mental illness and COVID and depression and all that stuff sort of blends in there. And there are a lot of people say, well, it doesn't matter anymore. It does.
It does.
All right. And because we have all these people that are still living in some of that stuff and they're not able quite to get out of it. So hopefully when you get into office, you'll be able to address some of those things. And we wish you lots of good luck. All right.
Yeah.
And Christine, if people want to find out more about you, what should they do?
You can find me on Instagram or Twitter, X, or on TikTok at Christine, FORFL, or you can visit www.christineforfl.com.
Right. I'm going to get this right again. Christine Sanon-Jules Olivo.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
and
Michael.
good luck to you. And keep smiling. Folks, thank you very much for joining us. And remember, take care of yourselves. And let's see. Who's back there today is Danny. Thank you very much for producing the show. Bye now.